As a person who loves Pokemon, when I saw that YoKai Watch was being planned to come to US, I looked into it and I immediately thought that this was not going to do well here. And when it was finally brought here, it's not doing the gangbusters that most of the gaming media thought it would. So let's take a journey through time, shall we? But first, I want to plug in my Patreon. There's a link in the description below. This ends that plug. When Pokemon was released, Nintendo thought it would fail due to the Game Boy losing popularity. But in fact, the opposite reaction happened. When it came stateside, the Pokemon craze was in full swing right out the door, and has pretty much maintained that stranglehold on the collectible monster battling genre. Digimon came out as a fierce competitor, and it did really well for something that was actually a derivative of Tamagotchi. It was even made by the same people. I never got into the original Digimon, but I did get into the Digivice versions because I was into the anime, which was kind of like the Pokemon anime, but was darker and did a really good job of doing its own thing. Then the third season came out, known as the Tamer series. Things got weird but were tolerable, but then went full out stupid when the humans and Digimon merged and I stopped watching at that point. Then the fourth series had the humans turn into Digimon or something like that, like Power Rangers, and from there I got out of it. And now Digimon just seems to be for that niche audience. Then there was Monster Rancher. I saw the anime and I loved it. I could never find the games though, as they seemed to be a rather niche thing in my state and no one was really into the anime. It didn't help that it was on at weird times as well, but also had a very sad ending that left me feeling unfulfilled. Then there was Fighting Foodons, which was entertaining, but it didn't last that long as it was pretty stupid. Metabots was similar to Digimon, but I didn't care for it. You could probably toss Bakugan in there, but it was more of a Yu-Gi-Oh ripoff. There's also Beatemon Crossfire, whatever, and I don't think that lasted past 20 episodes here. There was just so many of these collectible monster battling games and shows that were obviously trying to capture what Pokemon had achieved, but most of them failed. But you can tell that I gave all these monster battling franchises a shot, at least the major ones. Some of them I never heard of, like Robopon, until researching for this rant. And along came YoKai Watch, which when it was released in Japan exploded in popularity. It was like the Pokemon craze all over again. I remember reading a Kotaku story where I think he was an American living in Japan and was trying to get one of the toy watches for his son who liked the series, and he had an extremely hard time finding it. Kotaku talked about YoKai Watch's success in Japan and announced the plans for it to come to America. Polygon was going nuts for it. They wrote about it every single chance they got, and you could tell they really wanted to call it a Pokemon killer and say it was the end of Pokemon. But it is Polygon, and they're as anti-Nintendo as you can get. The rumor mill was saying that when YoKai Watch was going to come to America, we were going to start with the third game, which takes place in America, same with the anime series. However, that didn't happen. We got the first game in the very beginning of the anime series, but to very little fanfare. I asked my friends who have kids or have young kids as relatives, and a majority of them never heard of YoKai Watch, and that they had no idea what it was. One said that he thinks his son is into it, but not really, but being more into Pokemon. One friend said that she vaguely remembers hearing about it, but because of the toy commercials, but her young cousins were not into it. Another friend said that his niece likes it, but more in the sense of, it's there. But they all said that their kids or young relatives are into Pokemon. I've looked up to see how well it's doing in America. A couple of the forums said that yeah, it's a good series and has potential to grow, but it's taken in a lukewarm sense. I saw that the YoKai Watch anime was on Netflix, and after watching the first episode, I saw exactly why it's not the success that it is in Japan. I did watch more episodes, but only to confirm my hypothesis. First off, the games are not getting the advertising attention that Pokemon got and still gets here in America. And I think that has to do with Nintendo. In Japan, the developer, Level 5, also publishes the YoKai Watch games, but Nintendo publishes them here in America. It's possible that Nintendo doesn't advertise it that much because they don't want it to dethrone Pokemon. Nintendo has done shady stuff like that before. Shigeru Miyamoto has said that Donkey Kong Country is proof that players will put up with mediocre gameplay if the art is good. They cancelled the completed Star Fox 2, and according to Dylan Cuthbert from Argonaut Software, who were developing the game, Nintendo harvested the code from it that Argonaut Software created to use it to improve their own games like Mario 64, and took the code and concepts from Star Fox 2 and applied them to Star Fox 64. Let's not forget the meddling of Dinosaur Planet and making it into Star Fox Adventures. They liked Argonaut's idea for a 3D platformer starring Yoshi, only to reject it and then use the concept for Mario 64. Miyamoto even went up to Dylan Cuthbert at E3 and apologized for stealing the concept and said that they would get royalties, but they never got a cent. While it's just speculation on my part that Nintendo sabotaged YoKai Watch here in the States, they do have a history of not wanting third parties showing them up on their own systems. Secondly, the advertisements have only been for the toys. I don't even think the people in charge of marketing even know what it was that they were selling. All they showed was that you put a disc into a plastic watch and it makes noise. And there's a phone app that reads the disc and lets you see the yokai pop up in an augmented reality sort of thing. Speaking of toys, I've gone to multiple Targets, one Walmart, and a Toys R Us. The YoKai Watch sections on all of them are very small, probably one of the smallest sections too, and are completely full. Even during the Christmas season, the Walmart and Target that I usually go to did not run out of YoKai Watch merchandise. They ran out of the other stuff, but not YoKai Watch. And finally, the anime is rather esoteric and it's on Disney XD, which depends on your provider. I get that channel, but Disney XD doesn't really show the series. Only once at 9:30 in the morning on Saturdays. The rest of the time, it's mostly Gravity Falls repeats with a few Marvel and Star Wars cartoons sprinkled in. Pretty much copying what Cartoon Network does with Teen Titans Go. But as I said earlier, it is available on Netflix too. But I don't think that the target audience, young kids, are going to understand the lore of the show, nor will they understand the humor. The premise of the show works very much like how Pokemon does. One of the yokai, Whisper, travels with the main character, Nate. He has a device that acts like a Pokedex, the watch and medals act as Pokeballs, and he interacts with other yokai through physical confrontation or negotiation, and uses other yokai to help, and that's where the similarities end. The humor of the show is very much Japanese slapstick. It's fast-paced, loud, and has a lot of visual and auditory gags that you see in a lot of comedy anime. So unless you grew up watching a lot of anime, you may not get the gags, and considering that there isn't that much anime on TV like there used to be when I was growing up, specifically comedy anime, as everything that was and still is on is action-adventure. The humor of YoKai Watch will more than likely be lost on a younger audience. While Pokemon started out that way, it did change over time due to its international success. So any editing that needed to be done got better, or any editing that they needed to do was made easier for the localizing teams. Keep in mind I said got better, not perfect. I saw that badly edited in Sandwich jump into Ash's arms. Digimon was able to get away with it because it mostly took place in the digital world, and any time in the real world was limited. Monster Rancher entirely took place in the fantasy world. And each 22-minute block of YoKai Watch contains an average of 3 to 4 shorter cartoons in a slice-of-life type of show. Shows like Pokemon, Digimon, and other series that I mentioned all had a protagonist that was going through an adventure, which was the whole point of those cartoons, to have an adventure which was to sell the product it was trying to get you to buy. The character Nate doesn't really fight the yokai he comes across. He talks to them and summons other yokai in a sequence that takes way too long to help out, but due to the short nature of the segments, you're not going to get epic battles like Pokemon, Digimon, or Yu-Gi-Oh!, which may put off those who are expecting that genre of show. The YoKai Watch anime feels like you have to be in on the joke the entire time. Granted, YoKai Watch is not a bad show at all. I think it's pretty cool, but that's because I get the humor and the culture in which it stems from. I don't think I'll watch it like I have when it comes to Pokemon, Digimon, or Yu-Gi-Oh!, but I would put it on if there was nothing else to watch. And another reason why I think that YoKai Watch may not be doing that good here in the United States is because we did have an oversaturation of those monster battling collection things. So I think people just got tired of seeing so many of them that they just went back to Pokemon and stuck with it. But I would like to see YoKai Watch succeed. But I think that since the games aren't advertised that much, which I blame on Nintendo for not pushing advertising on it, the toys aren't selling that much, nor are they advertised anymore from what I've seen anyway, and the cartoon series is too esoteric to be comprehended for younger audiences, and is on a channel which has little chance of survival. I think YoKai Watch may just recede back to Japan and remain exclusive where it'll be better appreciated and remain the success that it is there. But maybe it's just my area where YoKai Watch is a flop, as this is all based on what I've seen and heard in my area. So, is it doing well in your area? Do you think it's failed in the United States? Leave a comment below and let me know.